Week 3, Thursday night Amazon game through the Sunday slate is now in the books. We still have the Monday night doubleheader tomorrow. We'll actually have a separate episode that covers those two Monday night games. I know it's only week 3, but I think we have two important matchups tomorrow, so I think it's appropriate to give those two games a standalone recap. I thought it was a good Sunday afternoon. I like the balance we had this week with the 7 early games and then the 5 late window games. To me, that is the better viewing experience. Not like last week where we had the 10 early and only 4 afternoon games. When you only have 4, and sometimes that can be as few as 3 once you get into the bye weeks. But when you have limited second window games, that can be a buzzkill. Now this week, the Miami-Seattle game was never close, and same with the Panthers at Raiders. I'll be the first to say the Dolphins' offensive performance in Seattle was very disappointing. I thought they were going to be better. I was very clear over the past week plus saying I did not expect Skylar Thompson to become Tua while he is out, but I thought he would be much better than what we saw against the Seahawks. Thompson is in his 3rd year of the Mike McDaniel offense, just like Tua is. And to have 10 days to prepare, I just thought we were going to see better quality quarterback play. I realized Skylar Thompson got injured and ultimately did not finish the game. But while he was in there, I expected the offense to be a little more efficient. But enough about the Dolphins and their backup quarterbacks. I want to start with that Eagles-Saints game in the Superdome. That first half was not exactly an offensive clinic. I would never have guessed you would see those two teams get to a halftime score of 3-0. But the decision-making there on the 4th down plays, especially with the Eagles and Nick Sirianni, that was perplexing. I mean, you talk about following up a terrible ending against Atlanta on the Monday night game with a bad start in New Orleans. You have to wonder what exactly was going through his mind. They had multiple turnovers on downs in situations where I just do not understand the thought process. And I'm not basing that solely on the result. Even if they convert those, the rationale was just not there. The one that was most bizarre to me was when he opted to go for it on that last series before the half. They had, I want to say, either 2 or 3 yards to go, and they were already well within Jake Elliott's range, and there was essentially no time left. There were about 15 seconds left when they snapped the ball on that 4th down where Saquon got stuffed. What was the plan there? Now, for context, at that point in the game, the Eagles were down 3-0 with a chance to tie it headed into the half. They were going to get the ball first coming out of halftime. There was like 14, maybe 15 seconds left, and the Eagles have one timeout. So my question is, even if you pick up a few yards to convert that 4th down, you then need to use your final timeout. So what exactly does that give you? Maybe one more play to take a shot at the end zone? But again, it's 4th down and the half is about to expire. Why are you risking turning the ball over on downs and getting 0 points? Which is exactly what they did. Then, on their first possession of the second half, they go on a 6-minute drive and once again turn it over on downs. It was 4th and 3 near the Saints' 35-yard line, and Jalen Hurts gets sacked on the play. Saints ball. Now look, ultimately, Philadelphia somehow wins that game, But I've got to assume this is about as bad of a 2-1 start as you could have. The questionable decisions by Sirianni is exactly what Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman were not wanting to see. There is a difference between being aggressive and being reckless. It sure feels like Sirianni has gone from using the analytics and going out there with a, progressive approach to managing these possessions. It's in a way that's starting to feel a lot like it did with the Chargers and Brandon Staley. And we know how that ended. The Eagles were very close to flying back to Philadelphia at 1-2 with the walls closing in. If not for those Saints defensive players crashing into each other on the Goddard 3rd and long catch, the Eagles lose that game. Now on the Saints side, on that final drive, Derek Carr simply cannot throw that football into double coverage when it's 2nd and 5 and they've still got, at that time, 50 plus seconds to go and a timeout at their disposal. They only needed a field goal to force overtime. That play, and I don't want to make this about just one play, but that's how football can be sometimes. It does come down to one play. But that was the Derek Carr the Raiders decided they no longer wanted. Just the untimely, what the hell are you thinking, desperation throw when it was just completely unnecessary. And it ends the game. And as good as Derek Carr has been this season, that one play just reminds you, yep, he's still the same guy. Some other notes from that early window. The Vikings looked really good. They're dominating these games. That one yesterday against the Texans, that was never even close. Sam Darnold is dealing. Jefferson is making plays. Guys not named Justin Jefferson are making plays. And that defense has been extremely impressive. And they have Aaron Jones. With the way the Vikings are playing and what we expected to see from the Packers and Lions, who are now both 2-1 coming out of yesterday, the NFC North is looking like it may be the most competitive division in the league. Colts and Bears, that was not a quarterback clinic, to put it mildly. Both of those guys, Caleb Williams and Anthony Richardson, when you're drafted that high, it is with the expectation that you can be the difference maker in winning games. For the majority of that game yesterday, it was just one mistake after the other. You know how in basketball, sometimes you'll hear the saying, it's just not so-and-so's night. It's like there's a lid on the basket. He can't buy a bucket. That's how it felt when those offenses were down near the goal line yesterday. I give Anthony Richardson credit. He mentioned it in his post-game comments as far as his play needing to be better. The reality is, through the first 3 games this season, Richardson has a 1-to-2 touchdown to interception ratio. And he's completing less than 50% of his passes, and he's averaging less than 200 pass yards per game. His quarterback rating, not QBR, so I'm talking the traditional quarterback rating, where 158.3 is the max. Richardson comes in at 55.9. As I mentioned, the turnovers are obviously an issue, but the lack of accuracy really needs to be cleaned up. We saw Josh Allen, who was one of those, much like Richardson, big arm guys who can make all the wow throws, but kind of came into the league with that stigma of, but he's just not that accurate. And to his credit, Josh Allen fixed that, and we don't really talk about that anymore. For Richardson, they have too many weapons on that Colts offense to be wasting these opportunities. Even on the non-turnover plays, he's airmailing just way too many throws. I feel like there's been, 9, 10, 11 plays this year where he's had either Pierce or A.D. Mitchell wide open and they cannot connect. And those guys are both big, they're fast, they can jump. How are you not completing these passes? And for the Bears, look, I'm going to avoid the cliche of it's the same old Bears. I just think they have too much talent, Caleb Williams included, to just write them off at this point. But there is definitely shared responsibility in their early season struggles on offense. That offensive line has not been good. They can't run block, and it seems really apparent that pass pro is also going to be a problem. For as much as we've heard about Shane Waldron and how he's going to fix this Bears offense, you could easily make the argument that he's been given the most skill talent of any new offensive coordinator in the entire league and has the least to show for it so far. As far as Caleb Williams, he needs to get rid of the ball faster, not lean so heavily into the improv, and just try to win one play at a time. There is no denying his ability and how great of an athlete he is. We saw that at Oklahoma and at SC. We've seen it through the first few weeks this season with his ability to escape and extend plays. I just think you need to rely on that when needed. Have it be the exception, not the rule. And look, to be fair to Caleb Williams, he's not getting great protection, so I'm sure it feels to him like he has to be the one to make every play. But this has just been a disaster on offense so far, and they are in desperate need of getting some kind of momentum going on offense. They just have no rhythm. And for Waldron, if certain things aren't working, then you need to accept and adapt. I don't know how else to put it. That sequence where they got stoned down there in the goal-to-go situation in the first half on 4 straight run plays, how about try something different? And overall, how about get the 5, 7-step drop stuff just completely removed from the available plays to be called until this O-line can show some semblance of competence. With the current state of this offense, these should only be quick throws. Slants, hitches, speed outs, skinny posts, fades. The longer Williams holds the ball, the less likely you are to have a positive outcome. Some other early game notes. Will Levis is going to play himself out of a job, and it's got to be extremely frustrating if you are a Titans fan, because Levis absolutely has the ability to make the big-time throws. I mean, he has shown some incredible accuracy and touch on the highlight throws early on in his career, but he just makes too many bad plays, and specifically bad reads, bad decisions, whatever you want to call it, and it sets the team back. End of the first quarter yesterday, he throws an absolute laser to Jair Alexander. And that really just set the tone for the rest of the game. The Packers go up 10 on the pick 6, and the Titans never really got back in it. Look, Levis is a good athlete, and he does have a good arm. But I think the Titans need to look at using him similar to how we saw the Giants use Daniel Jones back in 2022 when they went to the playoffs and actually won a game on the road against Minnesota. I just don't see Will Levis as a drop back 35 to 40 times guy. Packers. Malik Willis played really well. It felt as though they got way deeper in the playbook against the Titans in week 3 than they did against Indy last week. But big credit to him. He's now 2-0 filling in for Jordan Love. And I know he said all of the right things headed into the game, that he wasn't looking at it as a revenge game against the Titans and didn't really have anything negative to say about their organization. But that had to feel good on Sunday. Not just going in and getting a W, but he played well, and the Packers dominated. That game was over after the first quarter. Some other action from the early games. Steelers are 3-0, and if I had to guess, this is pretty much how they thought 3-0 would look. Rely on your amazing defense, run the ball, control the clock on offense, get just enough plays out of your quarterbacks to do what is necessary to win. And that's what we've seen through the first few weeks. Now, Fields did have a much better game statistically yesterday than in weeks 1 and 2. But this offense is anything but explosive. But hey, they're getting it done. They are 3-0 and at the top of the division. And here's what's crazy. If the Bengals lose in tonight's game, the Steelers would have a 2-game lead in the AFC North after just 3 games. That is insane. But it's the Steelers. It's Mike Tomlin. Enough said. Staying in the AFC North, what the hell was that from the Cleveland Browns? I don't think I've ever seen a game like that. You have the 0-2 underdog Giants coming in. They fumble the opening kickoff right into your arms. And then, on the very first play from scrimmage, Deshaun Watson throws a perfect ball to Amari Cooper for the touchdown. And just like that, the Browns lead 7-0, and surely this thing is going to become a rout. And then you look up, and Malik Neighbors is creating a highlight reel. Daniel Jones looks like, playoff Eli Manning those years they won the Super Bowls. And all of a sudden, the Browns are rolling into halftime in their home stadium, down by 2 touchdowns. The Giants did not score a point in the second half and still won by 6. And it actually never felt close. Now, the Browns did get a second touchdown and then converted the 2-point conversion early in the fourth quarter. But here's how it looked after the second Cooper touchdown and the Judy 2-pointer. 5 plays, lost fumble on the handoff to Ford. 4 plays, turnover on downs. 4 plays, turnover on downs. And then Devin Singletary hit that long run and took mercy on them with the slide at the 1-yard line to end it. This Cleveland Browns offense is dreadful. I said before the season, 9 games felt like a realistic win total for them because they just have too much talent to not get to at least 9 wins. But that 9 or 10 wins would not guarantee a playoff berth. They are now 1-2. And look, there are other teams sitting at 1-2 that should not be, and that may very well make the playoffs and prove themselves to be much better over the course of the season. But with the Browns, I don't think they're part of that group. And I want to be clear, seeing as how, some of the fan base has taken what I'm saying a little too personally and voicing some displeasure in the comments and the DMs, I don't have anything against this Browns team. I actually got really interested in the Browns when they acquired Odell Beckham, and at the time they already had Juice Landry and Njoku and Baker and Chubb and Myles Garrett, Denzel Ward. They had a good defense, all of it. We're talking, way back in the Freddie Kitchens years. They have had one of the better rosters in the NFL for 5-6 years now. My critique of the organization is the unforced error of just allocating way too much to bring in Deshaun Watson. And yesterday, I thought Watson made some really good throws. That first one to Amari Cooper, absolute dime. And even that throw to Tillman on the failed 4th down conversion at the end of the game, that was a hell of a throw. Put it right where it needed to be. I'm simply pointing out that Watson's level of play since he arrived in 2022 is just nowhere near what the value of the contract suggests it should be. He averaged 5.3 yards per attempt yesterday. He is completing just 58% of his passes this season. He has 3 touchdown passes, a touchdown on the ground, and 2 interceptions and 2 lost fumbles. Since arriving in Cleveland, and yes, I'm well aware this is impacted by the suspension and then the missed time due to injury last year, Deshaun Watson has thrown a grand total of 17 touchdowns against 11 interceptions going back to 2022. He's completing less than 60% of his passes as a Cleveland Brown. As bad as this offensive line has been this season, look, I realize he got sacked 8 times yesterday. How do you look at those numbers and argue me on that? Again, I'm just pointing to the facts, and the facts are the Browns traded an absurd package just to get Watson, and then they signed him to an unprecedented, fully guaranteed contract. They are loaded in offense in terms of skill guys. They have some elite defensive players, but wouldn't you know, it appears the offensive line is, how shall we say, they're less than. Who knows? Maybe a little bit extra cap room gives them the ability to build a better unit up front. Just food for thought. And until further notice, the 1-2 Cleveland Browns are now trailing the Pittsburgh Steelers by 2 games in September. And that's just where we're at for the time being. And for what it's worth, next week, the Browns travel to Las Vegas to take on the Raiders. And the Steelers go to Indy to play the Colts. I don't have much to say about the late games on Sunday. I give Sean McVay a ton of credit for getting the win against the 49ers. The Rams really battled in that game. To win that, given the circumstances of no Cooper Kupp, no Puka Nacua, that was a hell of a performance. Especially because they trailed by multiple scores in that game several times. But, hey, that's the NFL. Niners, I don't think most people would have forecasted a 1-2 start for San Francisco. I know I definitely didn't, but that's where they are. And yes, I realize they are missing important players due to injury, and those guys are all scheduled to come back. The fact of the matter is, right now, they are 1-2, tied with the Cardinals and the Rams, trailing the Seattle Seahawks by 2 games in the NFC West. Las Vegas Raiders. That performance at home against a garbage team, that was abysmal. There's no other way to sum that up. To have a team coming in with deficiencies at all levels, ownership, roster construct, quarterback play, lack of explosive playmakers on offense, to let them come in and just completely work you over with a 36-year-old, now journeyman backup quarterback, that was pathetic. Just truly pathetic. The Raiders beat the Ravens last week, going away, to then have that putrid Panthers team come in and dominate you on your home field. That is horrendous. Look, it's early in the season, but the Raiders are now in a must-win next week. The Browns come into Allegiant Stadium for Week 4. They need this game to get back to 2-2. The Browns' offensive line sucks. Deshaun Watson is a shell of his former self. If you cannot win this game at home, and now you drop to 1-3, the Raiders' season is effectively over before we even get to October. That is a bad spot to be in. So we'll see if this squad responds to Anthony Pierce this week. And then finally, we'll get to the Sunday game. I thought it was a really entertaining game. It went back and forth. We saw numerous lead changes. The Chiefs end up getting the best of the Falcons and improved to 3-0. Atlanta drops to 1-2. It still looks like something is off with the Chiefs' offense. which is pretty crazy to say that they're not playing their best and are still somehow perfect on the season. But barely breaking 200 yards passing for Patrick Mahomes and yet another interception thrown, that's definitely not the Chiefs we are accustomed to seeing. Travis Kelce was, once again, not a big part of the offense, but I will maintain we should not read too much into that. I think as long as he stays healthy, by the end of the 24 season, I think we see Kelce at his usual, 80-plus catches, close to 1,000 yards, 8-plus touchdowns. Just too good of a player, and we've seen it for too long to count him out. The Chiefs' defense continues to be a strong suit. They are just not going to let you hang a bunch of points on them. Now, they may give up some yardage throughout the course of the game, but they are for sure one of the top defenses in the league. Those fourth down stops against Atlanta on the final 2 drives last night were perfect examples of what they can do. The Falcons could have done some things differently. Not saying it would have resulted in a win, but I thought they left some plays out there. There were some opportunities to put pressure on the Chiefs, but the Falcons did not take advantage. They had some big-time drives. They ate up over 7 minutes of clock on the second-to-last drive, which ultimately did not end up with any points. It was 15 plays, over 80 yards, and they had nothing to show for it. But to their credit, they then force a 3-and-out, and they get the ball back again. But unfortunately for the Falcons, final drive stalled out near the Chiefs' 10-yard line, and they turned the ball over on downs. They were trying to pick up less than 1 yard. They got stuffed on both third and fourth down, and that was the end of the game. And that Chiefs defense is exactly why I like them to continue to be the team to beat this season. The game against the Chargers next week is going to be big. If the Chiefs win, they stay atop the division, 2 games clear of the Chargers. If the Chargers win, then they're both 3-1 with, and it is early, but the Chargers would actually take the lead in the division if they were to win next week. They would have the same record, and the Chargers would have the tiebreaker on division record and obviously the head-to-head. Hope you all enjoyed week 3 of the 2024 season. Let's hope Monday night brings us a couple of decent contests. We'll review Jacksonville-Buffalo and Washington-Cincinnati this week. Thank you all for listening. Talk soon.